Webinar is now streaming live on Facebook. So, hey, what is up, Lab Coat agents? It is Dale and Brian again, back for another week of Cash Call, and we're really excited to talk to you guys today. Brian and I realize that we need to get into the dialogues, and we need to be talking about what to actually say to these people to convert them into business. But, Brian and I were talking, and first we discovered that we should probably talk about the intention of these different leads that you're going to be talking to. Right, Brian?
Absolutely. Scripts are great, and I think they're important, and, we'll give you guys scripts, but the truth of the matter is you can go any place on the internet and get a script. And one of the biggest things that I've seen is people reading off a script, and at the end, all they ended up doing was pissing buyers and sellers off. And you call somebody 20 times and say some stupid script, and you're like, I don't understand why it didn't work. Dale told me if I said these words, it would work. Well, there's so much more to do that. Understanding the background behind that, it's so important. And that's kind of the thing that we want to cover today. Understand intent and the reason, and, how to talk to these people is not just reading off a piece of paper. We're not telemarketers. We're professional salespeople.
Absolutely. Let's see. Tristan's going to do a watch party. I'm going to try to find the watch party here because I want to see if we can get comments as we roll along, Brian. And it seems like usually when we watch the one that I post, I'm not sure where the most comments end up, whether it's in the one that we post or it's the one that Tristan does. But I'm trying to figure that out as we're doing this. So why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and get into the topics, right? So today, basically, we're going to be talking about the mindset of consumers. And Brian and I talked about it. We're going to run you guys down the hierarchy of the different lead sources and where the mindset of people is. And we're going to start from the least likely to be ready to do business or even be thinking about wanting to talk to a real estate agent up to the most likely ready to be willing to talk to somebody, right? So if we gave it sort of like a 1 to 10 scale, right? We're going to start from 1, we're going to go up to 10. And the reason that we're talking about this mindset stuff is I know everybody wants scripts, like you all want the magic words to put more cash in your pockets. And we're going to get there to the best of our ability. But first, you've got to understand the people that you're talking to. Because like Brian said, you can get a script from anywhere. You can say anything to anybody. Really, what we need to do is help you be more effective when you're actually talking to people. And if you can understand what their intention is and why they are thinking or doing what they're doing, it'll make you much more effective.
Absolutely.
So, Brian, why don't you talk a little bit more about the hierarchy, and I'm going to shut this door back here.
Absolutely. So, we're going to go, we're going to start with real simple, and it's probably the majority of you watching this, what we start with I will never even do that, but there's lots of good reasons to do it. So we're going to start with circle prospecting, and if I had to rate circle prospecting on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as people's intention to do something right away, or even intention to do anything at all, they're maybe a 2 or a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. But that's a huge opportunity. I've been talking with my team, and we've got I've got a staff on my team that kind of like the leadership, and we're talking about this. We're going to start doing more circle prospecting, and the reason that we're going to start doing more of that, plain and simple, is because Realtor.com might go away, Zillow might go away, but circle prospecting, unless they change the law, is never going to go away. The ability to just reach out and have conversations with people is never going to go away. So that's why we're really keying in on the stuff that we can control. If I were to pick a mistake that I've made in my business in the last 10 years, it's not being able to control my own business. Realtor.com doesn't want to sell me leads. All of a sudden, I got to find a new lead source. Zillow doesn't want to sell me leads, whatever it is. So we're moving towards actually doing this, controlling our own business. So circle prospecting is on the lowest intent. What's that intent? Well, first of all, they didn't even want to talk to you. They didn't fill out a form. They didn't do anything. So for me, with these circle prospecting people, the number one thing to do is build rapport as quickly as possible. And it's far more important than any other situation. How do you feel about that, Dale?
You know what? I actually disagree. I don't think it's important to build rapport. I think that with circle prospect, and we finally disagreed about something, right?
It had to happen, right?
There it is. So in my perspective, when we've done circle prospecting in the past, I'm not saying that we're going to be mean to them, that we're going to be rude to them by any extent, because you're in their market, right? You can't do that. I mean, here's what I believe. Someday, almost everybody in your market is going to buy or sell real estate.
Absolutely.
Almost all of them, right? At some point, someday they're going to do that. So of course we're going to be nice to them. However, from my opinion, for the, for the efficiency of it, really what our purpose is just to say, hey, this is who I am. We're in your market. This is why I'm calling you. And I want to know if you've thought about selling your property or if you know anybody who's going to be doing that in the near future, right? Just get straight to it. And then if they're nice or willing to talk to you, then build a little bit of rapport, see if you can put them into your database. What do you think about that, Brian?
I think I love it. And let me talk about what I'm talking about for circle prospecting, and maybe this will make sense to people. So again, as I look at trying to control my own lead flow in 2019 and 2020, because I'm already thinking about 2020, it's April. Can we believe it's April already? So I'm thinking about picking a farm. So my goal is to not just circle prospect around a piece of property that I listed or just listed, just sold, but to literally circle prospect my entire farm. So those people are going to consistently hear from me. That's why I want to build rapport. The first call might be a little bit shaky, but hey, this is Brian again. I'm just checking in with you guys. Hey, we're doing this. And so it may not be even true circle prospecting as we talk about it, but basically what I'm talking about is calling my farm. And you can do circle prospecting, very effective, by the way, to list a house and call 200 people around it. I think that's a great way. And by the way, even if you don't get a single lead out of it, you can tell your seller that you called 200 people around, and that, and maybe their next door neighbors say, hey, your real estate agent called me. That tells the seller you're doing something. Because remember, the 3 P's is what most people do: put a sign in the yard, put it in the MLS, and pray somebody else sells it. So, ultimately, circle prospecting does that as well.
It sounds like your circle prospect, honestly, is a little bit more like, hey, I'm going to pick a farm and turn them into an SOI.
That's the long-term goal, and that's where we're moving. And if you think that the days of just calling realtor.com and Zillow and Trulia, they're still great today. But you know what, guys? Be ready to pivot. And what I mean by that is things are changing. And if you are a person whose sole business is dependent on buying online leads from portals, I'd be very afraid right now. And the good news is, if you diversify today, then if and when it changes, I don't know if it'll ever change. I don't know if realtor.com will ever leave my market. It might, but I don't want to get a phone call and say, by the way, 30 days from now, you're out of business.
Right. So, yeah. So, well, I mean, they've moved to Op City in certain markets, right?
Yeah. 9% of the country as of April 30th will no longer be able to buy realtor.com leads, is the statistics I've heard.
Yeah. So I think really the point is don't have all your eggs in one basket, as they say. That adage really holds true.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the hierarchy, the mindset, right? The intent. So you were talking about intent. So the least intent would be circle prospecting, right? Absolutely. I joke because we approach it the way that I said, which is, hi, are you thinking about selling, right? No. Okay, great. Next one. It's like standing outside your grocery store, handing out business cards, right? Will it work? Can you find somebody who will eventually want to buy or sell real estate? Yes. But the intent is so low because they're there to get groceries and go home. They're not there to talk to a real estate agent necessarily. So intent is super low there. And I would argue that, the next lowest intent would be the leads from social media, right? The popular ones are Facebook, where you're using a lead ad to sort of dangle in front of somebody and see if you can get a bite on it. And the reason that I think those are the next lowest on the intent is because they didn't have intent to look at houses, right? They didn't have intent to start searching for homes necessarily. Now you do catch a few who do have that intention, but they weren't doing it at that time. So if they can switch over and now it becomes the intent, now you're good. But you're going to get a lot of people who are like, oh, shiny thing. Okay, I'll take shiny thing, right? And if you're using a lead ad where they can just easily register, it's easy for them to do. And if you're not, Brian and I talked about this the other day. If you're taking those people from social and you're forcing them to leave the interface and you force them to actually enter their contact information in order to do something, right? If you give them a couple of steps, now you're going to get fewer leads and you will get garbage info, right? That you wouldn't otherwise get if you're just using a lead ad. However, it does help filter down to the people who actually give you legit info and go through that process are probably a little bit closer to wanting to buy something or sell something sooner. Would you agree with that, Brian?
I 100% agree with it. My favorite joke that I talk about Facebook is, so, hey, honey, let's buy a house. So I woke up this morning, we're excited, let's go buy a house. Let's log on to Facebook. Well, no one's ever said that. But people do all the time say, hey, let's log on to Realtor.com. Let's log on to Zillow. Let's log on to Trulia. Hey, I saw this website. But
or do a Google search, or just search for homes near me, homes in, in my market, in Philadelphia or whatever neighborhood.
Yeah. And though people do that, but when people are on Facebook, to Dale's point, you just happen to be in front of them. Now, that being said, I'm not talking bad about that. We've closed a lot of Facebook leads, but we understand their intent was not to be sold something. Now, I figure that about 0.5% of people are actively looking someplace else. They see your house on Facebook and go, ooh. And when you call that person, you're like, yeah, I'm looking right now and I'm ready to go look this weekend. 0.5% will do that. So understand that. And I think just real quick, Dale, I don't know, you kind of covered it in general, but I want to touch on what a lead ad is versus a form. So basically two ways that I think that you can get a Facebook lead. The way I started doing it back in 2014 is we had a little link. You clicked on that link, they went to a website, and the website wouldn't let them move forward unless they filled out the form. So those people are actually saying, I am willing to type in my information into a form, give it to you. Sometimes you get bob@fu.com, and that's fine. You realize that Bob's number is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right.
No big deal. But one of my friends, when I was at a conference one time, she's like, I sold Taco Bell 3 houses. So it's a true story. Shout out to Lisa Archer. But
that's happened. Listen, that's happened to a lot of us, where it was BS information and you end up selling them property later on.
So, just because it's crap doesn't always mean it's crap. But what's a lead ad? So a lead ad changed what I call barrier of entry. So I don't have to type my name, my phone number, my email address, my address. The only thing I have to do is click OK. Facebook takes all of my data, dumps it into this form, and then sends it to the agent. So is the data accurate? As a rule, the data is more accurate because a lot of people put very accurate information into Facebook, thank God, or otherwise I'd probably go out of business right now. But the other side is they put no intent in giving you that information. They're not thinking about it. They're not saying that, because I'm always laughing when someone fills out a form, name, phone number, email address, and I call them and they go, well, I didn't think I was going to call you. Really? Because I asked for your phone number. It wasn't right. Because,
Yeah. Think about that, Brian. Brian, they actually say that. Like, I had to type in my phone number, and they're still like, oh, I didn't know you were going to call me. Now with a lead ad, it's like, oh, I push a button, like, give me what I want. Hit me with the dopamine, right? And all of a sudden the data goes there to them. And so everybody, the reason that we're covering this is because then the next episode, so the next episode's a cash call, we're going to be going through the individual lead types, and we're going to be talking about the dialogues for each. And this is really relevant, right? Because what do you say to somebody when you know exactly who they are and you have their contact information and they had no idea that you were going to contact them, right? And they didn't have any intention to talk to you about real estate. That is a difficult conversation. We're going to cover that, or can be. It can start out difficult.
Yeah, and so that's really the difference, and that's why we're covering this, to Dale's point, is we want to, there's a different script, there's a different dialogue, there's a different tone, everything is different, I'll cover portal leads because it's easy. When would you like to go see the house? That's my script for a Zillow lead.
Right, exactly.
It's that easy, it's that simple, it's that straightforward. They have an expectation. If you ask that to a Facebook lead, they're like, I'm not even going to buy a house ever.
So what are you talking about?
Exactly.
I was looking at cat videos and I saw a nice house.
Right. It was pretty, and that's what Facebook's about, guys. It's about pretty, that's what people are looking at. So understand that. And, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know if it's really cash call relevant, but a lot of people are talking about cost per lead, CPL. So something I want to just throw out there, I'd much rather pay $50 for a lead that actually has intent than 50 cents for, I'm never buying a house. Because here's the thing, if you call enough of those 50-cent leads, they'll buy there's some deals in there. But what's the value of your time versus your money? And that's the kind of the leverage that you need to think about. And it's literally going to be different for every single person. So as we start talking about these things, Dale and I are not saying don't buy Facebook leads. By the way, I've got about a $6,000 Facebook budget every month. I'm going to say do it all. Do all of them.
If you can work up to it, get every way of generating business in your business running as the largest teams, the most successful companies and brokerages, they've got probably anywhere between 10 and 20 lead sources running at any given time across the spectrum of intention and sales funnel.
Awesome. All right. So Facebook leads, we put them in intention, probably a 3. Is that where you put them? I probably put them a 3. And again, you can get some that are a 10, but as a rule, they're about a 3.
Yeah.
So,
and then we threw in as well, the outbound stuff, right? So not just purchased leads. So I would Brian and I went through this hierarchy the other day because we're prepared for you guys, right? We put this together. And so expired and for sale by owner probably come in next, highest or higher in the intention. So we've got circle prospecting, Facebook, social leads, right? Then expired and for sale by owner. Those people, they're probably a 4 on the scale. If you get to them quickly and you sound good and you know what you're talking about and you are direct with them, you can find, what you quickly find is that they either aren't going to do anything at all, which is, a lot of them end up not relisting and not selling again. Some of them will end up going with the last agent they listed with who, didn't get it sold, and don't ask me why. I worked them for years and I still can't explain it. And then there's a pool over here that will hire a new agent to help them, right? And in the FSBOs, there's a pool over here that are ready to have that discussion with a real estate agent and potentially hire you if you sound good and you know what you're talking about. So we probably give those about a 4, right? So then we've got circle prospect, Facebook, social leads, expired for sale by owner. And then what's next, Brian?
So we're looking at pay-per-click. And again, at least a pay-per-click, it's funny because people have done this, and I want you guys to think about how it's a false analogy. So what I've heard is everyone's throwing Facebook and pay-per-click into the same funnel or into the same hierarchy, and they're not. And think about it. For me, I live in Rogers, Arkansas. So if somebody is going to go on Facebook and they just happen to be scrolling and they see a house and they click on it, again, pretty low intention. To become a pay-per-click lead, you had to type homes for sale in Rogers, Arkansas, best agent in Rogers, Arkansas, whatever it is. They literally had an intention to say, I need some sort of information.
Yeah, they had to type. Yeah, they had to type that. They had to read the text and choose an ad versus an organic, click on it, get to a squeeze page or something where you force them to give you their contact info. They had to choose to do that and give you the correct information, right?
Exactly.
That's a lot of steps.
Yeah, and here's something that people don't think about either. So 10 years ago, none of us knew that the first 3 things on Google were paid. Right. Now, every single person knows the first 3 things on Google are paid.
They have to make it obvious. It's like law. They have to tell you that.
Yeah, so when people are literally clicking on the first 3 things, I'm not saying 100% of the country understands that, but I'm going to say 95% of the country understands that they are clicking on a paid ad when they do that. So again, I think they have a pretty high intent. And here's where I feel agents mess this up and they get the wrong intent. It doesn't mean that their intent is today. It just means that they have a high intent to gather information, and professional agents nurture. And that's what we're talking about for pay-per-click. So understand, they type something in, they want something from us. They may not want to go look at a house this afternoon, but they literally want something from us. And I want everyone to think about, if you're a real estate agent and you own a house, and especially if you're a real estate agent and you own a house and you bought it before you were a real estate agent, you didn't wake up one morning and say, honey, let's run over to the real estate office. It's not 2000, it's not 1988. No one did that. But what you did is maybe you went to a pay-per-click site, but you started long before you were ready to physically walk into a house.
Yeah. So listen, my wife and I are real estate agents. We're looking at beach property in another state. Where do we start, Brian?
You started on Zillow, didn't you?
We started on the internet. Zillow and other websites, right? That's where we started, and that's where other people start. We didn't start by saying, man, I want to find the best real estate agent in beach town that I'm looking in, right? We just don't do that. I mean, we know people there, and, you know, so we can reach out to them, but we just started by doing our own poking around, man. It's what everybody does, and it's okay. It's our job to have, really, honestly, to have the most fishing poles in the water, right? So that you can try to snag that fish as early and often as possible, and then you can nurture them to be, you know, to the point where they're going to do something with you and not with one of your competitors.
Yeah, and when we start talking about scripts next week, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about fishing upstream. So, you know, a Realtor.com or a Zillow or a portal lead, and we'll talk about that in a second, is further downstream. That person has much more intent, and because they're our next one, so I'm just going to lead into it. So our next one is portal leads. Portal leads are people who have intent. They understand, at least they may not understand the first time, but they understand after the first time that they fill out a form that somebody's going to freaking call them.
Yeah,
you know?
and that they get 4 or 5 calls, right? That's
Yeah, some of them get scared away and never do it again because they don't want to get bombarded. But, you know, the second you become a Realtor.com, a Trulia, Zillow, whatever type of lead, you know, 5 agents are going to call you. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in.
And our dialogues, Brian, our dialogues are going to take care of that, right? We're going to bake in ways that you're going to help dissuade them from ending up as another lead or talking to another one of your competitors, right? So the goal of the dialogue is to really get them cemented to you.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of our big goals in that is to never, we bought this lead on Zillow, and is for them to never go to Zillow again, which is kind of
absolutely.
You
Forget about Zillow. Zillow got shut down. You can't go there anymore.
Yeah, it broke. Zillow's broken. You don't
go
want
to my website.
But that's literally one of our goals is to get them to stop going over there. Why do we want them to stop going over there? Well, because unless you have 100% coverage in every zip code that you cover, and I don't know many agents who do, there's a real good chance that they're going to become somebody else's lead. And by the way, Zillow doesn't care. They'll sell the same lead to 27 different agents. They don't.
What I heard was we should stop selling real estate and start selling leads to real estate agents. I think that's what we should do.
You know, it's not a bad idea, but for the time being, I'm going to keep selling real estate.
We'll stick here then. Yeah, that's crazy. You get to sell the same thing multiple times, but you know.
It really is. So, and there's different sites. I'll give a shout out to one of the people who, you know, we were talking about Facebook leads. It's one of the things that I love about YLOPO. They will not sell the same lead to 2 people in a market. Doesn't mean that Realtor.com won't sell that same lead to your competitor. But if somebody becomes your YLOPO lead, they're your YLOPO lead. YLOPO will not send it to Dale and then send it to Brian and then send it to Bob. And it's one of the things that I love about those guys.
That's great. I bet Zillow wouldn't get as bad a rap if they did the same thing.
Probably not. Who knew? But they might not make as much money. So it's a choice. And I like YLOPO's choice. Nobody asked me at Zillow what I thought. So go figure.
That's great. Okay, so open, and then after portal leads, we're moving on to open house, right? So now we're getting up the scale of things that are easier to close, that you're going to have a higher probability of finding business from, right? And more, and they're much more ready to do something. So the point at which somebody's out at an open house, they're really now getting to that stage where if they aren't already thinking about having an agent, it's going to be very soon, right? And so open house is starting to get to that turning point, right? From where I'm going to do it myself to I do need an agent to help me with this, or I'm open to the concept, or I have questions that I can't really get answered reliably on the internet, right? And so now it's about time to start talking to a professional. And so open house leads are really getting up there in that stratosphere. And then we make the shift, right, Brian? Then we turn the corner to referral company leads, right? So where, you know, you've got the Dave Ramsey's, you've got the other companies that do referrals. I'm out of blank right now. But that's
HomeLight, agent referral, OpCity, effective agent. There's a whole list of them out there. They're very willing for you to close their transactions and pay them 25 to 35%.
Yeah, and I want to be clear about this too. Not all referral companies are created equal, right? Absolutely. So Dave Ramsey, for instance, Dave Ramsey is saying, when you're ready to buy a home, come to me and I'm going to set you up with a preferred person, right? That's in our program, a vetted person in our program. So versus, I'm not, you know, some of the other ones like My Agent Referral, things like that, or maybe not My Agent Referral, that's a bad example. They're saying we'll set you up with an agent. But there's other ones other referral companies where what they're doing is they're running social ads. They're like Ylopo, they're running pay-per-click ads, and then they're just filtering those. They have inside sales departments that filter those leads, that talk to them, that try to reach them, that try to do the same thing that you do. And then once they've identified somebody that's ready to talk to an agent or make something happen, they then push that to you as a referral. So They're not all quite created equal.
They're not. And here, let me talk about something that's real important with this. And I don't even know if it's cash call specific, but I think it's important. One of the things, and if you are going to work with these companies, make a choice to work with them or don't. And what I mean by that is, don't do it half-assed. And I don't know how to say that nicely. If you're offended by that, I apologize. But don't do stuff half-assed. In other words, OpCity, for example, that's a company that we work with. Every Monday morning, our agents go in and fill out and give updates on every one of those referrals. I don't care if the update won't answer the phone. That's an update. That lets that referral company know that you are paying attention. And it's very, very important. Any of the people who are listening to this who did REO know that this is basically the same exact thing we did in REO. You never miss a task. You always give an update. No, if they're coming to you and asking for an update, you failed. And remember that if you're going to work with these companies, give them the information they want, because here's the thing. Homelight, for example, they literally are running ads on television every single day. I listen to them on XM radio. I see them on TV. So they're getting more and more people. Here's the thing. If you're an agent who never updates that data, they're just going to stop sending you leads. And if you think that that's not the case, you're wrong, because they make money only and if you close. So if they don't feel like you're engaged, you're going to lose those. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely. That's an important thing. And you know what? Now we're starting to get more into, when we talk about referral companies, now it's becoming more and more like a partnership between you and that referral company, right?
Absolutely.
So the quality of the leads, depending on the referral company, are generally pretty good. It depends on what they're doing and how well they're vetted, right? They're pretty good, but they come with a big price tag, right? Anywhere from 15 to 35% of the GCI.
I think Dave Ramsey's up to 38 now.
38%. Thank you for the update. I mean, that's a big chunk of change that they're taking out of your pocket. But the intent is there. And again, we just have multiple sources, right? Because that referral lead becomes a what?
Becomes a deal. And that's really what we're looking for.
Which becomes then a what?
The referral source.
A past client, right? That doesn't have any cost associated with it and is the gravy that we all want to have.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, referral company leads much easier to talk to, much easier to convert, right? Because it's the intent. They have the intention to talk to you. And like the best source is a referral lead from a trusted person, right? And you have to try to screw that up usually, right? You have to intentionally screw that up.
Yes, their intention is, 95%, I'm going to say. If Dale calls me and says, "Hey, Brian, I've got a guy for Bentonville, Arkansas, and I'd love you to work with them," I'm going to assume that guy is going to buy or sell a house. I mean, I'm going to assume 100% intent. Now, sometimes they're not, but that's where my assumption starts on those. I'm assuming you feel the same exact way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would be surprised. Now, so referral company leads and then sign calls, right? So some people might be like, what's a sign call, right?
So let me be a stats guy, just because if you guys haven't figured that about me, I like statistics, I like math. 38% of sign calls close. 38%. If you haven't heard that number, by the way, the only thing that's higher is past in Sphere. I mean, wow. 38% of sign calls close. So here's the thing that I feel that most people screw up on this, and I'm not even talking scripts and dialogues. They don't answer the phone. So, I mean, I know that sounds insane. So I had a team, when I started really tracking this, I had a team of about 10 people, and we were using a system, Call Action. Shout out to Jesse Bodwine for those people who know him. It's a great product. We're using Call Action, and our signs do not have an agent's phone number on them. Our signs have a call action number on them that I can forward to an agent. Why is that important? So I can track it. So I'll give you an example. I got a phone call 2 days ago from a guy, and he was calling from Maryland, never left a message. finally, after 5 phone calls, he left me a message, and this is almost embarrassing, but I'll tell on myself. He said to me when I called him back, "Well, hell, you finally called me back." And I'm like, you're calling from an out-of-state number and you don't leave a message. I told the guy, I assumed you were a telemarketer. So not assumption on Brian's part. But my point is, if people call through a number that you can track it, you know where it came from. So my goal for our team is 100% answering assigned calls. But well, you can't do that. I can do that if I've got 15 people who that phone rings to simultaneously. And that's where we're at. So, even if you don't have a team of 15 people who are working buyers, get a way to make sure that you know that it's a signed call. Use some sort of system that says, holy crap, I always answer this phone call. And there's a lot of systems out there that do that. And if you miss the call, make sure you call them back immediately. Signed calls work. There's someone sitting in front of a house, they're calling a local phone number. They want to talk to an agent.
They know they're going to speak to a salesperson, right?
Absolutely.
They want to speak to a salesperson. Anybody who wants to speak to a salesperson is so high on the list of intent that you must speak to them and you can't miss it.
Yeah. We actually, once I explained this, and it was my fault, as the team leader, you're responsible for explaining this. But once I got my agents to buy into that, they fight over sign calls now because, again, we have it ring to everybody. So they're literally going and seeing who can grab it first. And we did a pretty cool experiment. We lined everybody's phone up. And
they don't all ring at the same time.
Yeah, that's interesting information. If you're somebody who's competing for things like OpCity or HomeLight or these things that have competitive, here's my free advice for you today. Every morning before you start your day, turn your phone on and off. Pushes you to the top of the tower. And I know that that's not like the end all be all, but it really does help. And
so did that take the anomalies out? Because I've had ISA teams that complain about that. They're like, the Zillow, mine rings 30 seconds after his does.
So ours wasn't that bad. I think we probably, from the first call to the last call ringing, was probably about 10 seconds, and we had 10 phones doing that. But we found out also that carriers matter. So, the 3 major carriers of Verizon, Sprint, and AT&T. Sprint rang the slowest. Verizon on an iPhone rang the fastest. So, and by the way, I don't love Verizon. I have them and I get pissed off at them on a daily basis. So I'm not saying go out and get a Verizon phone. But what I am saying is understand that there are differences and it shouldn't matter, but we are literally playing a game of seconds sometimes in the lead generation game. So understand who you are and what your intent is so that you can, know how you want to behave.
Yeah. Great. And so we're gonna have to wrap up. So that obviously the winner, right? The cream of the crop is going to be past clients, sphere, and referrals, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know what you think, Brian, but when it comes to doing the dialogue, so we're going to go through the food chain here. We're going to do the dialogues with you guys. And Brian and I had a little debate about whether, because he and I we both have some analytic type of person to us, right? So being the analytic type of people that we are, we would just start at one and go through the whole list, right, sequentially. But we thought then, wait a minute, a lot of lab coat is doing a lot of internet and, internet-based marketing and lead generation and things like that and automation. So we thought maybe we should focus first on those lead sources that most of you people are working. So feel free to message in, chat in, comment in here the lead sources that you want us to really work on, and we'll try to focus on the most important ones that are important to you. So what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks of Cash Call, we're going to be going through and working on each lead source. And I digressed. My point was, right, with the past client, sphere, and referral, Brian, we'll probably be able to give them some pointers, but it's like, we're not going to have a whole lot of dialogue to give you, right? I mean, I know Brian, having been in timeshare sales, this guy probably has some magic closes. I'm totally setting you up here, right?
Yeah, appreciate that.
He's starting to sweat. So but we'll have some good tidbits to be able to give you guys some good pointers for ways that, how we talked about preventing people from going to other agents, preventing them from being on other websites, making sure that we're answering the questions that are in their minds so that when they get off the phone with us or leave the face-to-face with us or get done with emailing us, they don't accidentally end up doing business with somebody else, right? Inadvertently.
Yeah, and by the way, I love what Dale said there. There are people who are good people who don't understand what we do. And so we always make the assumption, and apparently I'm going to curse a lot today. We always make the assumption that the guy who goes and works for somebody else is an asshole. That's not a good assumption. A lot of times we were the asshole who didn't explain to him how it worked. So
exactly.
Understand that just because every single real estate agent understands that we work on commission, the public doesn't. I had a guy call me one time I showed over 20 houses to. His name was John. I'm not making that up. His name was literally John. He said, hey Brian, it's John. I just want to let you know that I bought a house yesterday. He wasn't calling to rub it in my face. As far as he knew, I got paid every time I opened a door. So one of the things to understand, and we'll go through some of these scripts.
Oh, you'd be happy for him.
He really honestly was calling me appreciative. That guy wasn't a jerk. So understand, I mean, he was an honest guy. And I know, I can just tell
that's
his voice.
That's hard. You know, that's hard. That's hard to like, be like, that's great, buddy.
Thanks, John.
I got something to do. I'm going to go punch a wall.
Right. So I hung up and probably said some words that I didn't say to him. But nonetheless, my point is that part of our job with those sphere and referrals is to explain to them how the system works, explain to them what our process is. And that's probably the biggest scripts that we're going to be going over with them. Because here's the other thing, and this is kind of my final thought for the day. The number one thing that real estate agents can do in 2019 is come across as professional. Because you know, when I started in 05, once somebody went in my car, and they actually went in my car in 2005, by the way, they were mine. They didn't call 25 other agents. That's not true in 2019, guys. So if you don't stand apart, if you're not professional, even if you do what you thought was an acceptable job, some other agent did one little tiny thing better than you, and that's why they work with them.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the point of cash call, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. It's what do we say to these people? What do we need to cover? What do we need to make sure we get in there? How do we open a call? How do we introduce ourselves? How do we get into rapport? How do we objection handle? How do we move them? How do we close them, right? How do we set them up for a logical close to do something with us? And then how do we close the door behind us to make sure that no other agents get through that door?
Absolutely. And I'm excited to talk about all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I love, and I think Dale does too. And I'm excited for next week. When do we want to give them a little preview? What are we going to actually, which lead source are we going to cover next week, Dale?
Sure. So we're gonna start with the big one. We're going to start with social media leads, Facebook ads, right? We're just going to start with that. So, you know, why LoPo's big. A lot of people are doing it, and you know they're really popular. Brian, you use them personally, and you can to the quality and you know the customer support. I've met some of the guys that run it, and they're really awesome people. So let's start with those leads. There's a lot of people that want to know how to talk to them because, again, we talked about they're lower on the intent scale, right? They're lower on the horizon or the time frame of when they're going to be doing something. So it can be a little more difficult of a call to have with somebody who's like, I don't know when, I don't have a timeline, and I'm not really sure, right? It's kind of tough to deal with that stuff.
And I'm going to give you guys a little sneak peek. If you're having trouble with Facebook leads, tune in next week, because what we're going to show you how to do, and I wish that I created this, but I'll give a shout out to Barry Jenkins. I'm going to use some of his stuff, and he's the guy who developed a lot of this stuff. We're going to talk about how to take that 24-month lead and turn it into a 12-month lead. We're going to talk about that 12-month lead and turn it into a 6-month lead. And it's all about having a conversation with them. So I've set myself up. That's a pretty big ask, but I'm going to actually show you the scripts, and these are working real time. This isn't a hypothetical. There's actually people using these dialogues, talking to these people with this intent, and finding out that it's the same thing. I walk in to buy a pair of pants. I got my checkbook in my pocket. I'm ready to write a check, and the salesperson comes up to me, and when I say I'm just looking. So we're going to teach you how to deal with that. For the people who are using that as a defense, we're going to teach you how to take down those walls and actually be able to get them to tell you the truth. And that's where it's at. So
yeah. And
I'm excited for next week.
What's that? Sorry, I cut you off.
I'm excited for next week is what I said.
Yeah, me too. And for those who don't know what a check is, it's actually a piece of paper with your bank account number written on it, and you have to write numbers on it and give it to somebody.
It's like a note from your mom saying you have money.
Right. Just listen, we got to make sure the demographic here might not know, just keeping you honest. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Brian, good seeing you again. And I can't wait for next week.
Appreciate you, Dale. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.